Whatever you are, be good at it. Cause we know today's the only day that matters to elevate. You are the only one that matters to elevate. And that's why today, this week, we're getting into acting on the ledge. Acknowledging the things outside of us. Gaining that knowledge from the things outside of us that are happening to us on our day to day. And using those as our ways to groom our potential. Yeah, we're gonna groom our potential today. We're gonna get into the aspect of understanding those conflicts. Today we're gonna put a nice little focus on gender, the masculine and feminine archetypes of things, and understanding that when we're battling the masculine aspects or conflict with masculine concepts, or that's the knowledge, what are you not providing to yourself? That's what that conflict represents. And then we're gonna get into if you're having a battle with the feminine concepts or things out of touch in the feminine aspect, what are you not nurturing? We're gonna get into that this week with that acknowledgement. Understanding the inner state of self and the reflections that are the external state of self. Bringing them together so we can continue moving forward. But you know, before we get into that, we gotta get into the God thought. The little blog spot, we gotta get into the God thought. And then you know I got the weekly reading coming for you. So sit back, relax. I'm gonna let that beat just ride a little bit. And I'm gonna let the sage burn in this. Sage light the space up real quick. Got the sage, got a Palo Santo burning, got the incense burning. Got a real, you know, Papa Lucy, you master of ceremonies, yeah. Spiritual guide on this quest if it resonates with you. You know I gotta let that, we gotta set that vibe. So sit back, turn up the music, let it work, share the knowledge, let the knowledge do what it's supposed to do. Remember, there's no such thing as good or bad, it's positive and negative. Remember, there's no such thing as right and wrong, it's does it serve me, does it not serve me? That's your crossroads. Are you below that line or are you above that line? Let's get ready for this. Thank you for choosing the God Hour Podcast. Season 3, episode 25, Acting on the Ledge. Stay tuned for the God thought. I love y'all. Let's get into this. We often misinterpret what it is to be alone to heal. Thinking of ourselves that it means to be lonely. Most times, the very evolution of us requires a healthy separation. Rising to that God frequency is no different. There is really no complexity to it. We are gods. We're actually more than that. Though, in order to comprehend that level, the God frequency is key. Realizing that it is an illusion to put so much into perspective, that our conditions are based off of the programming of our own subconscious. We start to get our emotions in control. One major thing to understand is the power we have. So many times, without the slightest idea, we give our power access. We give our power or our access away. For us, it's our ancestral and culture. We have been told everything is dark and is black is evil for so long. We didn't what did Brother Malcolm say? Who taught you how to hate yourself? Energy isn't good or bad. It's the human comprehension that is the ultimate sin, as we understand that the ultimate sin is human thought. Ignorance is bliss, because ignorance, the byproduct of ignorance is sin, or the lack of knowledge. That's where we get into the aspect of what we are acknowledging in our lives. This aspect, this key, is understanding that the conflicts that we face, they all fall in line with those universal laws, those hermetic laws. And today we're going to be getting into the aspects of gender and the comprehension of that gender. The masculine archetype being the knowledge, the providing. The feminine archetype being the nurturing, the guidance. So the conflicts that you have in your everyday life, remember, everything is a reflection. And if you do not deal with the reflections in those mirrors that are meant to be learned from, you end up lost, disenfranchised from your true self, your greatest potential. Yeah. A lot of growing. Realizing that we don't know anything grows us to having everything. Realizing that we don't need anything leads us to everything that we want in abundance. This was the God thing. Stay tuned for the weekly reading. Welcome to the God Hour. As I finish shuffling up our deck for this weekly reading, we're doing an acknowledgement reading. Very big for us to get that acknowledgement that we're needing to go forward. I'm feeling a sense of I'm feeling a sense of that lostness, and you need that confirmation about what you want to move forward on and do. Or maybe you made the decision and now you just need clarity about the decision that you made. Let's break that down. I'll pull the Magician, pull the Nine of Pentacles, the Knight of Swords, the Five of Cups, and the King of Swords. The Magician represents determination. Your determination to show your dexterity and your strength and resources. All that work that you're putting in, all the determination and work you're putting in, I'm seeing by the Five of Cups that you're putting it into the wrong place, but we're going to get to that. As shown by the Nine of Pentacles, that financial, as we always talk about, that currency or spiritual energy is in full bloom. That change that you're wanting, that rise that you want for yourself, that new energy that you want for yourself is in full bloom. Those personal pursuits and that steady security that you're looking for is there. You just have to, as I'm seeing by the Knight of Swords, you're feeling restlessness, you're feeling a little burnt out, or you felt burnt out, you felt a little restless, but it's not going to be in vain. Your ambitions and drive to succeed, as indicated by the Five of Cups that I talked about, have left you feeling set back, but don't feel the failure. This shows also it may be time to move on from where you are trying to stay. It may be time, or maybe you've known it the entire time where you just move forward. Remember, confirmation for moving forward, or confirmation if you have moved forward. You're trying to keep the thought process in your mind for the one that hasn't moved forward yet. You're trying to stay for the external potential and the worth of your inner life, at the worth of your inner life. For the one that stepped forward, you're now in a space where that inner light's gonna start shining. And that's indicated by the King of Swords. It's time for to bring yourself that mental clarity that you've been searching for. This goes for either or. The one that needs the confirmation to move forward, or the one that needs confirmation that has already moved forward. It's been past time for you to need that mental clarity. You seek affirmation and the power, not for others, but for yourself. It's time to start putting that power and acknowledging that power inside of yourself based on those external reflections that we're going to get into today. You are in full power. You are in full control of your destiny, your path. I said your destiny and your path. It's time to actually start inner reflecting on the things that keep you from tapping into what is already there for you. I'm telling you, that job, that relationship, your man ain't acting right, your chick ain't acting right, the job ain't acting right, you still waiting for that raise, whatever it may be, it's time to step forward. We don't get into acknowledgement. We don't get into acknowledgement and understanding those reflections to move forward. Stay tuned after this message from our sponsors over here before we get into this episode. I love y'all. Welcome to the God Hour. This has been your weekly reading by Papalooza. You feel like you got a voice? You feel like you got something to say? You feel like you have something that can move the masses or get everybody tuned in and you want a bigger audience? Whether it can be anything from something like the God Hour or anything from like sports, news, fashion week, whatever it may be. Let me put you on to something. The easiest way to do it is with the Anchor app. Biggest thing about it is free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will even do all of the distribution for your podcast for you so it can be heard on many other platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money. You also can make money from your podcast with a minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. It's everything you need to get your voice heard and get what you feel that's in your heart and into your heart out to the masses. If you're interested, download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. Welcome to another episode of the God Hour. You know, this week has been beautiful. The upcoming weeks are also going to be beautiful. You know, everything's going to be beautiful when we step into this space. But while we're in this space, we have to start speaking on these things and making them normal. We have to start bringing the normal existences of what is our realm, our world, our self in order. And sometimes when we get into this space, the thing that stops us from getting to our greatness is, as I always say, our humanity. Humanity and ego are those counterparts of yourself based on survival. Humanity and ego are these counterparts based upon you surviving. We're no longer in a state of survival. As I pulled out those cards for this weekly reading, the Magician, let me go back and look at them again. I have them sitting up. The Magician, the Nine of Pentacles, our King of Swords, our Five of Cups, and our King of Swords. It's time for us to start standing on our shit, standing on our principles, standing on our where we want to be in our life. I always feel a lot of internalization. Seems to be one of those things that we tend to not acknowledge. We acknowledge the eternal states of being. We acknowledge the status quo. We acknowledge these outside entities and give them more power, not realizing that the power that we're giving them is our power. The only power something outside of you has, the only power something has outside of you is based on what you've given it. And the only thing that you give these things, usually your job, this is what they all hold in common. Your job, that relationship, whether it's in a good position or it's in a bad position, whatever position it may be in, the job that has not given you that raise, the boyfriend or girlfriend that has not acted right or did not want to demonstrate change. There's one constant factor in all of these things that you have to start looking into. It's you. The inner state of yourself. Your inner hunger, your inner love, your inner worth, the inner aspects of you. And that's what we're going to get into today with acknowledgement. That ledge that you're on verses for yourself of your past transgressions, the things that were on your heart. You've been there for such a period of time. You've put in so much work, but now you're just starting to externalize the potential. What you're putting in the external is your potential. Ooh, that just made me want to run around. What you're putting on the external is your potential, your inner potential, the inner state of being for you is what you are putting that mask on, and you're wearing your rose-colored glasses or your rose-colored 3D glasses, and you're now projecting this, and you've been projecting it for so long into this item, this job, that relationship where you're living at, all of these situations. You projected at it for that aspect for so long. And this even goes if you've been single, because that first relationship for yourself, you've put on this, for the external aspect, you put on this sense of independence. You put on this sense of hard work and determination, to show your hard work and determination, to show your determination, to show your drive, to show your prowess, to show where you're standing on. You stand firm in your drive. Oh my God. But in reality, Poppy Lucy's here to tell you, in reality, you feel restless. You feel like you're in pain. You feel like there's no chance. You feel like there's nothing going to happen. Poppy Lucy is going to tell you from one space, from the truest of heart. You have to stop listening to that outside and listen to what's within. You have to start listening to that inner aspect of yourself. The things that are charging that inner aspect of yourself. The things that lead you to, the things that are speaking to your soul. That's the key. Understanding the things that speak to your soul. The things that naturally seem to bring you fulfillment. Because you don't even realize that sometimes the things that are around you in that space, in that mindset, you can't see the difference of them because you're stuck in that externalized status quo. You're stuck in that, that's my friend, that's my family. You're not looking at them for what they are. Even when it comes down to a family member, even if you have family members that have grown in that aspect. Let's say you're in a position where you have grown and now you're looking at your family members and you're waiting for them to grow. You have to remember this at all times. Your level of being where you were at when you came into your position, when your infrastructure fell, is not going to match the infrastructure for that person. Because you have to remember the traumas that you set forth and you worked through built that infrastructure that that family member is now in. Those are cornerstones for that infrastructure. You have removed yourself and allowed that old infrastructure that was your traumas, your insecurities, and all these things, these groupings, those trauma bonds. Those are no longer cornerstones for your new being, your new self, your new state of your new state, your new air, your new goddess, your new God energy. The infrastructure must fall. What you take from that infrastructure is the core, that sense of what helped you through it, so to speak. What did you learn from it? You're taking the lessons. You're not taking the memories of what happened there. You're taking the lessons. And if you haven't learned from it, this is that moment in time where we're going to go through the aspects of those lessons. Acknowledging the lessons that we need to learn. And when it comes into the learning, this is on the aspect of knowledge. Knowledge is the masculine aspect. We look for our father to provide. We look for that father archetype to provide something to us based upon knowledge. to provide protection, to provide clarity. And for a lot of us in our aspects, as I'm looking here at the Knight of Pentacles, and I'm looking at the Knight of Pentacles right now as I'm playing through the cards. Whenever I'm doing the podcast, I'm playing through cards. I'm looking through the cards. That's just an aspect of me. But yeah, I'm sorry. But when you're looking at yourself and you're coming into the realization of yourself, you have to start looking at the knowledge is simply the masculine aspect. Just like the nurturing is the feminine aspect. The nurturing, the natural aspects of the woman archetype, the nurturing, the guidance, the needing to the household matters, that guidance aspect, that's the role of the gender. But when they broke down, this is another aspect, when they're breaking down things based on an intellectual level, and it loses. When you break things down on an intellectual level, and us naturally being that spiritual greatness that we are, as I resituate myself in my chair, as that comes into position, and we start looking for new definitions, we start looking into the old things for new definitions, you have to look at them. This is the aspect of your occult mind going into the aspect. You can have all of the knowledge in the world. You could have been the best spelling bee champion of the world. You could have been the spelling bee champion of your school, of your state, of your wherever the you was at. But that ain't got nothing to do with this now. None of that has nothing to do with now. Where you stood at, your status doesn't matter now. Your could have been the banker, one aspect to look at. The one with money and the one without money are both in the same moral conundrum. They're both on the same polarity. Because the one with the money is now looking down that pipeline at the one without money, or have not came from money, or they came into money and never want to go back there. While the person that's in wealth, thinking about their wealth, thinking about wanting to get money, or they're looking at this person on the nice things, they're stuck on the same polarity. Neither one of them have that key aspect. They're both become the thinker and the knower. They become the thinker and the doer. Neither one of them are the knower. The knowledge. And without the knowledge, you can't nurture. So without the knowledge of that masculine archetype being in order, you can't nurture anything or have any guidance. So the feminine aspect isn't in order. And that's what you're looking at. Every single day you look outside of your life and you're looking at these things. We're looking at this projection of our disorder. That's all you're looking at. But tranquilo. It's okay. The spirits is in there with me right now. Spirits got me feeling it right now. We in the zone right now. Loving the music. They want me to go run, but I'm not gonna run right now. I'm gonna use my, let myself comment in. I'm gonna use my divine ability to teach the masses. But so we're looking at reflection as I light up. We're looking at reflections of ourselves. And on these reflections, on these mirrors are now clouded by our traumas. These mirrors are clouded by our traumas, our pains, the things that we've gone through. So even when we come into a sense of our spiritual self, or we're coming into the need for a spiritual birth. So as we're coming into our spiritual birth, or we're coming through a new spiritual birth. We're in a position where those mirrors that we look at that are clouded up with the traumas, that are clouded up with the pains, things that we haven't dealt with, that's the first thing you look at. First thing you're going to look at. So that reflection that you're looking at in the media, it's a reflection of what you need to look at. Remember, it's all spiritual anyway. Everything else is done. It's spiritual and get pulled down here. We've been here for so long, we don't know we still in control. It's our literally, if we establish that this is a simulation or an illusion, or it's a dream state. When we go to the dream state, that's our real self. If we acknowledge this, then all that's left is we're within the dream state. We can program it based on what we learn while in the dream state. That's the duality of it. As I resituate myself in my chair. I'm getting real situated up there. But that's the aspect of that. When we're looking at ourselves we try to look at ourselves based on the status quo of being a mother, being a daughter, being a son, being the one that works here, being all of these aspects. We get lost on ourselves. We get lost in the external self, or those reflections that come up in the mirror, and we get lost on the inner state on the path to ourselves. The inner state to ourselves. We get lost in it. I'm just loving the flow of the music right now. We get lost in the inner state of the music. We get it lost. I'm getting lost in the inner state of the music. I told you I use the old music to channel, and I use the new music that I create. I use the old music to channel, and I use the new music to conjure. So I'm literally feeling the beat, the allow that energy that I put into the music to give me that vibe. Like, that is that's the best feeling. Sorry. Papa Lucy this in here, feeling really, really good right now. Being used for that word. But yeah, to get to this feeling, we have to understand these reflections that are in those mirrors. We have to understand that these mirrors that are outside of us are based upon the mask, the traumas, the things that we haven't dealt with. The only way to understand these things is basically going through the aspect of, if I'm having a conflict with men, niggas ain't shit. Sis, niggas ain't shit because you ain't shit. Was I not supposed to say that? I'm sorry. No, I'm not. You saying niggas ain't shit, something inside of you based upon the knowing. Niggas don't know shit. Niggas, think about the spell that you automatically speak every time you say niggas don't know shit. Niggas don't know shit. Niggas being niggas, being that spiritual aspect. Niggas being the knowledge aspect. You saying niggas ain't shit, you saying the knowledge ain't shit. So you steady nurture this thought process that niggas ain't being shit. So you feed that into we feeling it right now. You feed that into your area. Now everything around you has to connect to that same fundamental formula that you have now created that spell. You created that spell by saying niggas ain't shit. You live in that wavelength. Now everything that you connect to, from what you watch on television, to what you listen to in music, to who you sit around or who you not sit around, both of these same programs, both of these same spectrums, all of this goes into accordance. I hope y'all can hear the jewelry because I'm speaking real quick. All of this shit comes into that aspect of where you're at. And that's what you're nurturing. To the brother that say bitches ain't shit, that programming that's been given to you, that you live by this code, this status quo of being the big man without the money. I'm here to tell you that shit does not exist. You can't have it without the female. You can't have it without the feminine aspect to nurture it. I'm going to sell this green. Just by selling weed alone, you selling Mary Jane. Mary Jane is the feminine goddess. So you need the feminine goddess in order to make more money? Cocaine, the white lady, the white girl. You need the white girl to make more money? You've been doing this shit so fucking long that you don't know the reason. That's why it feel good for you to do have this shit. That's why it feel good for motherfuckers to do the shit that they're doing. You want to have a rap career. The muse, the musician, the muse, that energy, that's the feminine aspect. Everything from that makes you feel a certain type of way is the feminine aspect. That's why your baby mother sit right there and listen to every fucking song on the radio. Or she got a whole playlist when she want to talk shit about you. That's all it's connected to. You just never, you can't nurture it because you're out of touch with the feminine principle. Sis, you can't come into your balance because you're without the masculine or the knowledge to go forward. This is the breakdown when you start looking at, this is how we start looking at this shit. Told you the spirit saying, got me feeling real good when we do this. But like, that's the aspect of you coming into your higher self of understanding. Allowing yourself to let go of the vulnerabilities. The things that have us locked within those vulnerabilities are those traumas. Those traumas are what have you stuck in a vulnerability. That relationship that you got in, it could have been the relationships that you keep getting in are whether, and this is the crazy part, you can be in a relationship for over 5, 6, 10, 20 years. And we keep talking about this aspect of, I want to have the relationship that my father had, my grandparents had. We keep wanting to have this relationship, not understanding the strenuous aspects or the historical values that were placed upon that relationship, why they had to survive. And then we look at certain aspects like this. This is why the father wasn't in the home. Those restraints weren't there anymore. On the same note, as the restraints weren't there anymore for that aspect to be in the home. On that same aspect, the restraints were there for the home. Feel it. And it was too much. They didn't have the knowledge to go forward. They were no longer in touch with their feminine aspect. Damn. They were no longer in touch with the feminine aspect. If you looked at the archetype of what men were told to be, as I adjust the microphone, if you look at the archetype of what men were supposed to be, silent, not cry, not show emotion. I'm not talking about the aspects of providing and protecting. I'm not talking about those aspects. We're talking about the aspects on the other end to have to maintain those aspects. Maybe you gotta look from both sides to understand and bring them home. So the not being emotional, that denies the divine. That denies the divine masculine. Not speaking on what's troubling them. Come on now. That's speaking, not speaking on that aspect. Come on now. That denies the divine masculine. So now when we come forward into this archetype we have created in this new space, come on now. We created the paradigm. This gives you further understanding that we've been in charge and been in control the entire time. You've been in control of your whole life. Now it's time for you to take them reins. Now that it's time Now that you have all the information that's out there, how are you investing with it? This is what I've been getting into. And I understand that energy, putting it out there, understanding that context. Now it's like that shit clicks in and you like, damn, I'm in that space. But now I can humble myself, bring myself into balance, remove the ego. Ego's dead. Humanity's dead. I ain't coming back here with baby brain. And I can sit here and give you truth. We get stuck in this aspect of our wanting to be the status quo. We start putting our own thought processes and our own perceptions based upon our identity, and we battle with our identity. The same thing that drives people to be like the feminine aspect, the females can't run the world, is the reason that the females run the world. It's the same reason that a Beyonce song singing that is getting formation, that witch, that beautiful goddess of the Hector, that witch can give you the same motherfucking vibe and have you doing those things and feel empowered, because that's the feminine aspect of the information being nurtured through that one way. And in the lovely goddess Erykah Badu can do the same thing. That's the wavelength. That's the feminine aspect. But without the knowledge, we go into these spaces lost. Without the knowledge, we go into these spaces lost. We set ourselves into a position that we're trying to make our home feel good. We're trying to keep our home in order. We're trying to keep our home in order. We find ourselves battling losing our infrastructure, losing our mind. We find ourselves battling losing our mind. Your mind is all the universe being mental. Once you have that in your mind, you understand that your mind is a conduit for the thought processes that you naturally feel off of your heart. The heart is the true mind. So if I sit here in a position and I have this feeling of anguish, I have this feeling of pain, this feeling of struggle, this feeling of oppression, this feeling of strife, if I have all of that on my heart, what am I going to think about? If the mind is all and the universe is mental, and that's all I'm thinking about, what am I going to create? I'm going to create conduits based on my identity, which is my ego, to help me flourish in that space. Remember, it's not good or bad. It's negative and positive. Does it serve you? Does it not serve you? That's your new compass. So the shit you've been doing in your life and this energy that you're pulling down and all that shit you want to do and focus and you want to take yourself to the next level, you got to change your environment. But you got to understand the environment that you are in is a reflection. Tell you the spirit sit here heavy with this. Is in a reflection of the things that you have not let go of. Your man acting like a child. What childhood traumas are you not acknowledging? Your woman always wanting to be in control. What things are you not internalizing or acknowledging that you need to take control of? It's all there. But your ego, your imbalances, the imbalances of your day-to-day, those fears, those things that Papa Lucy sits here and it's went all the way through, that I can see through, to tell you it's all right. Let it go. But first we got to understand, the aspect of letting go is not to hide. We get this aspect of letting go, it's under the same guise as escaping. No. That's where addiction lives. We get addicted to these, now still in the external state, we just got deep. It's been 27 minutes. Break this down in sections so you can absorb it. But yeah, one hell of an opener. And we're going to get into these aspects of understanding these traumas and what they connect to outside of us, that needing the knowledge and why we search for it as the masculine, and then that needing for knowledge and that nurturing that we search for in the feminine. And we're going to get into more breaking that down after this lovely message. Welcome back. We needed to take that little break so I could use the bathroom. But I like building such a natural aspect. So we're talking about building into these natural aspects of ourselves, getting more in tune through understanding. Let's sit and look at the music, get the music back in sync with us. Okay, music back in sync. I love these little conversations that we have to have. One thing that we have to get rid of is the what's disabling us. What we're thinking that are our helpers are actually our handicaps, our crutches. We came down here with crutches. We came down here and we put a crutch in place to help us, but now we must acknowledge that crutch is there. We lost sight of the crutch that was there. So we look at the problems that are happening in our life. Let me go back to the music real quick. I can just feel the disconnect from the music. So when we're in that position, based upon our traumas, based upon our identity, that sense of escaping, and this is when I talk about when we get into the sense of escaping, how those shallow tones from what we watch on television, remember, we just acknowledge that everything down here, this is a dream world, and we program it. So in order to get in tune with everything that you're wanting to have, everything that you desire, guess what you got to do? You got to understand the programs that you are looking into. The key concept, the key context is you. I keep telling y'all that it's you. I keep telling you that you're the only one that matters. The reason I keep telling you that you're the only one that matters, only one day to elevate. These are programs to break away from that spell. As I readjust myself. So, from the masculine aspect, when we're looking at the laws of gender, we understand the mind is all and everything is mental. Took that away, now you got it back. Understand cause and effect. Every cause has an effect. Every effect has a cause. Took that back. Now you understanding the cause. You have to get into the understanding of what the cause is that left you disenfranchised from your mental or your true self through the balances of gender, the masculine and the feminine aspect of what's not nurturing you and what knowledge that you need, and accept to that aspect. When you start doing this, we're able to understand and formulate why at this level the secret societies or the masonry, brothers want to be masons, Moors, they want to feel like they're going towards knowledge, but they're externalized it, and this is a realm that brings everything to the external. In order for you to reform or to learn to embrace your truth, to come up out of it. But through this, in this level, you staying here for so long, losing your way, losing your path, losing your focus in the things that are within humanity, being a kid, being a mother, being all those aspects that we broke down earlier. Resituating myself in my chair. I just want to stand up, and that's getting into the aspect of me doing the live lectures. That energy that's flowing through me to get it out. But we look at these things in these aspects, and we get stuck. And we're like, it's not giving me what I think I want. What do you feel? The reason that it stays there is because it's connected. The reason that it's still connected and you get to it and it keeps you in that state of balance between yourself of this is what I feel that I need and what I feel that I want. That thought, this is thinking based on what I want, based on the external program, and feeling based on what I want from the internal. Remember, we have to look at the contradiction. The contradiction is the nexus point that leads us into what the fuck we really need to deal with. So keeping our family together in an external aspect becomes, when we internalize it, what about my family is broken? What aspects of my childhood are broken? What have I not dealt with? What have I not looked at? What have I not, the Nori song came to mind, where I kept doing the what? What are you not dealing with? What are you not acknowledging that you have not dealt with in your childhood traumas and pains? The reason that you are constantly looking for children and your man acts like a child with his toys is because it's a reflection showing you the inner child within you that has been lost due to the repressing of those fractures of your psyche. Everything going up in on the heart that you have not dealt with. That's why you look at the outside windows and you keep certain aspects in your life to keep you going forward, because you're still dealing with those things, those bonds. And this is aspect if you're below you're coming into. And now that you're coming up to that higher state of yourself, now you need knowledge of why does this still feel bad? It's always going to feel that way. But if you're at a state where you need to learn, it's always going to be that state to learn. But now it's transitioning from, what am I learning from this position to go higher? And now that, or when it switches, when you get to the higher aspect of the position, what am I doing to nurture this position? Now that I'm in the state of my higher self, my wisdom, the wisdom that I've coming out of now goes into this position to help it now flourish. Growth. It's always about growth. So when you're in this space, trying to hold on, all you're doing now at this point in time is you're bringing in all this new information to try to fix a situation that was not meant to be fixed. Remember, this is a level that's inherently flawed. It's a level or a realm that's meant for you to learn. Take them lessons. I know it hurts. That's why brothers have that aspect of They want the young tenderoni. They want that young thing. They want something young to make them feel good, so they can mold them into what they want them to be in that aspect, stuck in this reality. That's why the music works for you. That's why watching Love and Hip Hop or Basketball Wives, all these shows connect to you. This is the understanding when we're coming into ourselves of understanding why these things were created within this realm. They're only meant to keep you here. The conflict that you have with baby father, baby mother, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, it's time to acknowledge from the inner standing of yourself, what am I not acknowledging in this situation? What am I not listening to? I had a very instant conversation with the queen of the house. And me being the psychologist, that's the funny part about it. Me being the psychologist, I've learned how to analyze and read. Me tapped into my spiritual aspect, it just gave me further power to be able to, as I adjust my mic, I looked at the aspect, I'm able to actually listen, read the situation, see through the hurt, see through pains, and go through that aspect. So we had our conversation, and during our entire conversation, we talking about the little one. I don't want our little one to hear this. And I was like, at that point in time, I was like, yeah, you're right. Went out, had audience with the young goddess, and explained what was going on. At that point in time, a nexus point based on family, based on growing. When you come into these aspects of your higher self, what are you nurturing into that situation? Remember, because everything is a reflection. So in that space, when I was in that reflection, the child represented my subconscious. The child now in the physical aspect is my subconscious that I'm nurturing. The daughter, the mother, the birth, these aspects that we look at, the nurturing. Now, there's two ways to go when we're looking into the aspect of intuition or trauma. If you're moving through your trauma, you just want to hide everything away. But if you're going through intuition, it's a moment to learn. This is the higher and lower aspects of yourself. So in that position, when we were sitting there, I came to tears. Normal shit. Divine masculine. I was showing her and demonstrating there must be a sense of vulnerability to step to these new levels. Whatever feeling that you're going to feel, allow it to come to the surface. These key aspects are what are needed for your infrastructure of your external, the shit that you want to keep externally intact. That shit don't matter. At that moment, boom, you go forward, you like, damn, I've just jettisoned myself to the next level. But if we're stuck in these programs within ourselves of, I want to give my kids everything that I've never had. This is why I always say, fuck them kids. Because if you ain't doing what you need to do internally, you naturally saying, fuck them kids. If you are not doing what you need to do internally, you're naturally saying, fuck them kids. But what about my family? If you're not doing what you need to do internally to get yourself in order, to take yourself to your higher self, you're saying fuck your family. So think about the reflection that happens outside of you. It's all reflections, baby. It's all reflections. So think about the reflection that happens outside of you every time you do something. That infrastructure, the infrastructure that was based upon the trauma, hiding pain, is now coming to an end. That's why you see in the fucking media, you got Trump bringing stuff out. You got Kanye crying, mental illnesses. all of these aspects are a comedy. That's why Dante's Inferno was written as a comedy. Because to the true knower, they understand how funny it is. To your true self, your inner self, that's why you understand why laughter is the language, or the laughter is the language of the soul. These little aspects that come and kick in for you. But we'll get back to that series. I almost went off the whole subject. We were going to talk about the comedy aspect. But coming back into that, so you're looking at your life right now. You're looking at the aspects. I just don't know. And now that you're searching, what fragments show up in your life the most of the time when you need to nurture something? The same aspect that gave you your knowing to learn from, that forced you to drive to go do better in your life, brother, sis, your family, enters the insight. Sorry. Enters from the stage corridor is the friend or family member, the feminine aspect that needs nurturing, that feels lost, never getting their life right. They right there on the fucking urge of getting something right, but they don't know how to take the full leap. That's a reflection of you not doing what you need to do. That's what that acknowledges. I told you, everything is a reflection for you. That's a reflection of you, showing you things that you have, them not doing right, them not releasing, you getting so frustrated with them because they just don't get it. It's an aspect showing you the conflict that's within inside of you. Why don't you get it? Take the whole aspect of you having an argument with your child and why your child does something. And the first thing that they tell you is either I don't know or because I heard you do it. And this is based upon the balance within yourself. This is usually that term. This is usually the aspect of the parenting. You're not the traditional infrastructure based on parenting doesn't exist. You're trying to parent based on, you're trying to parent a situation based on old fundamentals. So when you take in new information, you go get self-help books, you want to help the relationship, you want to save what's there. You want to be a good mother, so you get the self-help books on being a good mother. You want to be a good father, so you go get self-help books on there. Once again, this is how this level works. You feed it your energy and it brings something back to you based on the knowledge that you have of yourself. You send it out, it brings you something back. You want to be a better mother? Here are all the aspects of being to become a better mother. But to champion, to perfect it, you got to look within. Everything outside of you is the external reflection or the GPS to that inner highway. Telling you, like, you got to feel it. That's the eternal highway. That's your GPS. So if you keep seeing the same things, you know you keep making a wrong turn. Every time that you're looking at TV, you look at Love of Hip Hop, whatever you're looking at, and you see the same, you come to the same fucking destination, and that's your destination, it's time for a new turn. Every time that you sit here, it doesn't matter if you sit here in your car and you feel like you're going somewhere, but you never go nowhere because you got to come back to reality. How you set in the reality. That's the reflection aspect. That the energy was cooked on that one. That's the reflection aspect that you got to look into. And once you understand that, everything falls into play. everything comes into play. And if you're done with the identity and ego, it leads us to the hermit. Coming into yourself and realizing yourself. So all that chaos you feel and all them arguments you having, you may be in a whole damn relationship and it was based on a bunch of fucking arguments. Everything that you create within that space, y'all can be having sex. But since that energy's already in that space, guess what happens? You're creating the space, or you're birthing the same energy in return. I told you it was deeper than just you thinking, going back and forth. Everything that you do has a fucking... Everything you do does have a repercussion. And as a god and a goddess, you are learning the repercussions as being that, as my man said it in Constantine, God is just a man with an ant farm. You're looking at your ant farm play out the way that you said it, based on the energy that you put out, based on the thoughts that you're searching for, constantly searching and needing something, but then you're trying to... When it comes to a height, that's when the emotional comes up. When it comes to that height, when you're just tired and these are aspects that connect to when you came to a certain point and we seem to get lost. I've been fighting for so long. I'm just about tired. And then you listen to this part in the book, the part in the story where it says that's when it's about to come to an end and everything comes into good. Here's the reality of that part. Whatever you program for it to be good, all of that determination that you have within yourself of going forward, everything that you cultivated in that chaos requires you to be to yourself. You're always doing it for yourself. Everything boils down. This is the aspect when we think about the I model of our psychology, the I model, the myself model. I want a better family. I want a better family. I want a better job. I'm doing this for my family. The key aspect of that in your shadow work, homework for everybody, is the I aspect. You're focusing through the I. You're focusing through the I, so now you're envisioning through that same I everything that you need to stay in that space where you're at. But through that same I and through that same vision, you get that new light or that nuance to yourself. Once again, what are you not dealing with? A lot of us get stuck on these aspects of what we're not dealing with. We get stuck in the hustle and bustle, going back and forth of what we are committing to maintain things. And then we get lost and we need an escape route. And that's what we look at a lot of times when we're stuck in that escape route. What am I doing? How do I feel? My morals, all that shit goes out the fucking window when you're doing something that makes you, once again, feel good. The infrastructure of the external must fall in order for you to learn by internalizing that energy. What's falling? What is it showing you? You laughing, whether you laugh, cry, however you react to it, doesn't matter. It's what are you learning from it? Because everything has a learning aspect. When you're looking at Kanye West have another breakdown and it goes back to maternal and all that aspect. And we can encode that however we like. Whatever you not dealt with in what you feel is the loss, what you're connected to is the loss aspect. I lost my mother. I lost the maternal instinct to nurture me. I lost that maternal nurturing. Now it's my turn to nurture it. That hurts sometimes. And all this process, whether you're birthing yourself to the next level, or you've come to this sense of this, you've come to the sense of your higher self, realization that you want to have more. You start looking at the things that truly matter on that aspect. Need some water. That's why I sound like this. I need some water. Something like that. You need to focus on those aspects. Nurturing where it all came from. We look at that when we look at the end towards certain things. We're nurturing a new birth. That's what death stands for, birth. I'm seeing loved ones now bedridden. The maternal, the maternal aspect and the father aspect. I'm seeing that as well. That's linked to your getting yourself back on your feet. I'm seeing that aspect as well. I'm seeing that. I love that. How are you putting yourself back on your feet now that you're in a state to where this is on internalizing it? Now that everything's went away, that was you set in place. Now that you're in a state of humility to yourself, now you're seeing life play out the way it needs to play out. Everything is a reflection for you to learn from. The knowing, or that masculine archetype, the key to tapping into that is by nurturing what it's telling you. Taking it to, that's why you take shit to heart. And we're going to get into that after we get back from the break. After we get back, let the sponsors play. Let the sponsors drop that stuff out. And then we're going to get deep into that aspect. That's why everything plays out this way. Keeping my point. Oh, we got 2 more minutes. We don't go all the way to the end on this segment. But that's why it plays out that way. That's why the heartache, it always hits you in your heart. No matter what your father did, what your mother did, the person that raised you or brought you into a certain position, that's why it hurts. No matter what they did, they could have been a horrible father, a horrible mother, but let them be laying in a bed somewhere. You're going to feel something. It's going to bring up feelings. I'm not supposed to feel this way. That's the trauma speaking. Your intuition is what's trying to lead you back to what you need to lead back to. We'll get right back after this. Right back after this sponsor break. I love how it all this flows together. But taking the aspect of the recent deaths that you have experienced, death represents the transitioning or into the rebirth. So if you've dealt with, we look at the media and we're saying, oh my God, all of these death tolls, all of these death tolls, all of these death tolls, all this death. And I sit here in my Indian, like, when I record, I am in full as above, so below, Baphomet, the Lord, the sleeping Shiva, all of these aspects coming to in tune for everything that I do. So I'm literally sitting here in Indian style Like, and you would see like taking that journey to the top of that ledge, that mountaintop. I always remind to put the music back in. But going through that process, you need to see that death. I'm sensing that mother that happened in your life. I'm also starting to see that I don't need a lighter. All I do is think flame and then my bud relights itself. But everything is a teaching aspect for you. We just have to get not rid of the emotion, but we have to get our emotions in control. Everything is a tool that helps us move and do what we need to do. So the emotion that you feel based on sorrow, anger, pain, what you are trapped in, what you're getting trapped in are the conduits. As I'm looking at an email real quick, what you're getting trapped in is the conflict or it sets that tone. So you need that process. So the processing of the humanity aspect that we look at when we're thinking about processing grief, as a God, you don't need to process grief because you understand the grief is the aspect for humanity to understand and interface with why it happens. And they always come to a conclusion. Death means rebirth and transition. They come to it anyway. That's the believing aspect. You're in the knowing aspect. This is what we're coming into. The death of a relationship or a relationship ending or the longevity, we get stuck in the potential of the relationship. We get stuck in the potential that job could have held. We get stuck in, this is the moment that you look for, but you don't understand the feeling or that enlightenment that connects to it. The reason, and when you have that feeling, when you understand that, that's your power. What do you do with it? But if you're unconsciously moving, now you're moving in a state of consciousness. Now that you're consciously moving and understanding that aspect, how do you invest or how do you redeposit that new energy? Now that you came to that realization. I tell you, this time loops. I'm loving the flow of the music. I'm just loving the flow. I get excited when I'm in the spirit. Like if you see me on Friday Night Lectures, and if your first time tuning in, Friday Night Lectures, G.O.D, Alkhemist, to the ones that have been listening, the patrons, the people that have been following me for a while, the way that I'm reacting, the way that I'm moving with the knowledge hits me and that enlightenment that it just flows. They see this every Friday night. So there's the aspect of me being in that space to be able to create that freedom, letting it just flow. But in order to get to that flow, you have to in order to get to that flow, to that energy of just being there, to be centered and rooted, is going to take some letting go. To get to your potential, you got to let go of the external aspect of trying to make everything else work. I'm going to readjust my mic as I say this. Might just put the hat on. The hat sitting beside me. Everything that's an embodiment. The potential for that relationship and that job to work. The reason that it never comes into full fruition is that you need more knowledge within that space. The difference, the line in between you leaving that job and you leaving that relationship is acknowledging yourself. Everything that you need to do. everything that you're thinking about. When you're in a relationship and you structured yourself as this is the independent aspect. I'm able to take care of my bills. I'm able to take care of my bills. I'm able to take care of myself. I'm able to take care of my home. What you're not able to do, and what the knowledge that you... Remember, your ego creates that concave or that lens. Follow me as we get deep in this. Put my leg up on that. We were watching Dolomite earlier, and it was like, put the weight on it. Came through, and that Dolomite energy coming through. The aspect of you being in that side of that space, the potential that is in that space, the potential that you feel, the potential that you feel, the externalization in your external state is showing you that it's working for yourself. The change that you're trying to implement in that space, put it into yourself. Put that shit into yourself. What you are acknowledging is what you need to put inside of yourself. You've already, once you break that shit, you're like, wait, I already can take care of myself. I know how to take care of myself. I know the avenues of taking care of myself. It may not be what is good, but I'm not thinking about good right now. I'm thinking about the aspect of, does it serve me? Woo! Got it coming up. Does it serve me or does it not serve me? Living that duality of, does it serve me? Does it not serve me? Is it negative or is it positive? If it's negative, what can I learn from it to charge myself? If it's positive in my life, how do I connect to it? The reason that something is positive in your life, or that positive influence that comes into your life, that positive light that you connect to, is because it's strumming at your negatives. You're searching for an external story in an external state to show what you're doing. That's why they can give you love and hip hop and none of their fucking albums ever drop. That was set in the past aspect. You get stuck on that thinking that is your future, thinking that is a current situation. It keeps you disenfranchised from getting into your current moment. It's knocking at the door. You know what you need to do. Sis, you know what you need to be doing. Bruh, you know what you need to be doing. You know exactly what the fuck you need to be doing. The potential is there for you to do. It's always gonna, I'll put it like this. That relationship that you're in, that job that you're at, there's always a potential there. The knowing and the confidence within yourself. The music just brought us back into that space. The potential that's there in that job is based on the knowledge that you're willing to put yourself to that status. Are you willing to let that be? This is the battle of conflict between your natural self and what you're projecting. That projector aspect. We get stuck on our job. We get stuck on our relationship. We get stuck on these external states thinking that's what we are. That's based on your identity, based on your ego. Your ego has to keep you in this state so you don't work on the shit that's within. So you can go a whole nother year. I got a stimulus check. I got my taxes. Leroy said he was going to flip my taxes, and he didn't flip them this year. Meanwhile, playing in the background on your Facebook page that you didn't pay attention to, there's 16 so groups that you can connect into. Sewing as in SEW, as in SOW, as in sow, as you reap as in what you sow. So that check he could have flipped, that you could have nurtured, you could have gave him that information. But since you were still so stuck on the external aspect of something, you didn't look at it. You didn't learn it. And this goes for brothers as well as sisters. This goes for the guys and the goddesses that are in transition through that rebirth phase where you need to be at in your life now. Tell you, we cook over here. All we do is grow over here. Papa Lucy, your master of ceremonies, your spiritual psychologist, your bringing all that aspects into one to better usher you into that next level. This is what we do over here. All we doing is building over here. We don't accept anything less but building. So when you come into this space, ego gets checked at the door. Ego dies here. Ego has nothing to thrive for in here. So when you're looking at these negative aspects that you connect to in your life, you're looking for something to thrive at. So that dead relationship, that dead friendship, that partnership, whatever it may be, that is now dead, it's a negative anatome. So in order for your ego to exist, it must connect to that and then give you that emotional imbalance of something that you already knew that you needed to do in the first place. Once again, it comes back into the picture to show you what you need to do next. But what are you doing? Take a sip of the water real quick. Everything that sounds so crispy when you're at this level. So we're talking about the potential. Getting to this space of potential requires that going to the aspects. As I'm flipping open one of the books, I'm putting together the book list. I am working on that book list. If you listen to the podcast and you want to, like, you need cited information, like, where can I get the stem for that idea? Book I've been reading over the last couple of days is Revolutionary Psychology, The Practical Spirituality and This Practical Spirituality That Awakens the Subconscious by Samael, the Lightbringer, on or Amen, the Hidden. We are the light we bring from the hidden. We are. Tell you, when you start looking at everything like this from this level, you see everything breaking. When you at this level, when you come into that level of yourself, you start breaking everything down to make it serve you. That's the key. But you got to get past them traumas first. Your potential is there. Your potential is there. The thing that's going to stop you is the traumas. Your potential is always there. This is always those traumas that you got to go through. The things that you have not dealt with. The things that you don't like to bring to the surface. It's time to start dealing with it. That's what this whole Chiron in retrograde is ushering and putting a highlight on what Mercury has directly brought into this aspect after bringing the retrograde or bringing all of that aspect up. And now that's what's all in alignment. This is the cleansing or the purge that you've been waiting for. I tell everybody, someone asked me a question in a lecture Friday. So what do you feel about the thing talking about the vaccination being a mandated aspect? I look at everything as how am I going to invest into it? How do I invest into this information? How do I invest into that thought? That's how you need to start taking these things when you're thinking about make everything a business, because family is wealth. Family is a business. This is how these aspects work. If in your family structure, and we took it to this aspect, remember, everything is everything. I told you I'm gonna give you everything. I'm giving you everything. I'm giving you from every aspect of life. And I just move so fast, but I'm slowing it back down. That's why we break it out throughout the week. We got the podcast, Friday night lectures. You know, we got tonight. You listen to this episode every Tuesday, 7 p.m. You got that aspect. And if that's all that, so we can get that business. For the family being business. Before we get lost in the translation. Family being the business structure, the business model. You treat it as a business structure. Your chief executives that are in charge of the finance aspect, or that knowledge bringing in for that finance. If they're not doing what they need to be doing, what is it showing you within yourself? Once again, we come back to the acknowledging self. It's not about what you're doing. When you ask that question, what am I doing? What am I doing? How can I've done everything that I could do to be a better mother. I did everything I can do to be the best wife. I did everything I could do to be the best husband. I've done all of these aspects to be the best girlfriend, the best lover, whatever it is. You didn't do everything. You did everything to serve the external, but you didn't do anything to your internal. How did it make you actually learn internal? Think about the conversations you be having. That's why I tell people, think about the conversations that they have. This is why when I do that conversation with people, that initial consultation, I sit back and listen. As a therapist, that's as I should. And I sit there and I listen. And I help them put it all in a sense. This is one of those aspects of reading people. When you're reading somebody, you're reading based on your intuition or your true self, or you're reading based on the trauma. If you're reading based on trauma, it's automatically going to become augmented. I'm gonna light it up. It's automatically going to become augmented because you're acting through the trauma. So the aspect of what happened with your father, the thing that happened with your mother, at a point in time, those childhood traumas or things that you repressed come out to the surface. And then you recreate. Now your ego takes the aspect. Watch the movie Fight Club, and it's going to change your entire perspective. I mean, watch Fight Club. Don't watch it as an entertainment aspect, because you're gonna lose every time. Study it. Just like when you watch the movie, I want to think, the movie with Andre 3000 and Hobbs from the Fast and Furious franchise. Use them. Revolver, Fight Club, these cult classic movies, it's all within the title. It's all within the title. So we look at that aspect and we're like, oh shit, now it makes more sense. So the business model, so you look at your business model, you look at your friends, you look at who's around you, and what are they providing at that point in time? This is the aspect when I break down in the lectures. When you were at a certain state, based on, let's say, you were always partying, you needed something. Now you don't need it anymore. Based on getting away from what trauma? It always leads back to your trauma, because that's what they feed from. That's why when you start working on your shit and you start seeing people around you based on the knowledge that you're taking in, as I clean the mic off, you start seeing them for the ain't shit that they are. but then your ego tries to kick back. Oh shit, I'm sorry. Your ego tries to kick back in, but like your ego's still showing you, because your ego's not working for you. It's showing you exactly, but due to the trauma, see, you get close and then you get pulled away from it. Then you're looking at it, and now you try to refocus your light back on the existing aspect of your external state. Every time you get a little bit of information, you want to spit that shit out. That's the aspect of when you come into your consciousness, you come into your awareness, or you get that new information, such as a diet, or I want to try this new diet plan, or I want to do squats, or you watch a movie that's exciting. These aspects are, and you want to share your excitement, and you feel like you're doing something at that moment in time. That's you coming into your enlightenment. Internalize it. Acknowledge that feeling. This is you tapping back into your energy. This is you tapping back into your purpose. This is you tapping back into what you're supposed to be doing. Learning, observing, embracing. You're coming from the seat of the passenger, and you're coming into the reality that you're the driver. You've always been in charge. It's time for you to embrace and internalize what you've been in charge of. What you've been putting your energy into to exist. Now it's time for you to live. That's why chicks get their hair cut and be like, new hair, new me. That's why brothers keep their hair done. Keep their hair, they don't like saying done, but we at a higher level now. That's why niggas keep their fucking fit fresh, and they keep their lineup fresh and stay crispy. To establish, they came into a new sense of knowing. You better know who the fuck I am. I tell you, we've been doing this shit unconsciously forever. I'm getting real frothy. We've been doing this shit forever. That's why you see the things that are happening. These are based upon our traumas, or trying to get away from something or escape. But through that escape, we're still showing what we are tethered to. This is when you start looking at these aspects outside of yourself in your life, personalized. What is that showing me? Boys with their cars, girls with their makeup, girls with their dolls. All of this shit comes into fucking aspect of why it was put there in the first place, to learn from. How are you learning from it? That's where your potential lies. Your potential lies in where you learning from it. I tell you, I'm in the zone right now. Palo Santo in, I'm like in touch with the energy. You hear my jewelry. Y'all ain't heard my jewelry since season 1. I'm back in the bag. We back in the bag. We back in the bag. We back in our bag. We back cooking. You heard the laughter. We back in our bag. What are we investing our new energy into? Our new potential. That potential that's within you is what ushers out and what screams out. That's the scream you hear when you're trying to get your relationship right. That's the scream you get when you're frustrated at your job. That's the frustration that screams out when you're trying to get your kids right. But what you need to acknowledge is, why are you trying to get them in order instead of coming in tune with that chaos? Why are you trying to get them in order when they're doing exactly what you programmed them to do? You program them to do what they're doing. You program them to do what they're doing. Everything outside of you is an aspect. This is why only you matters. Based on, it's programmed to do what you set it to do. either to make you run away from something or reach out for something for knowledge or to internalize something. Everything is a creation to help you understand something or go into another level. Put my water up. We get real deep. This takes us outside of the aspect of time. This takes us outside of the aspect of, this is why you can say something a million fucking times and you yelling at the kid. I've told you so many times. I've told you so many times about the bills. I've told you so many times about these issues. And you scream it out. So many times. And you scream the answer out when you're doing it. So many times. What you need to acknowledge is the time that you need for yourself to step forward. Your potential. I told you gotta listen to yourself. What are you telling yourself? That's what I need. That water. The H2O. Bring us into the next flow. But you have to understand that the things outside of you, being those reflections, those conduits, that you have programmed to do exactly what they're supposed to do. That's why when you look at somebody outside of you, now you're interfacing in real time, the Fight Club syndrome, as I like to call it. You start sitting there like, now that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, and you're coming into this realization, and then you're like, you're interfacing, you're almost close to it, seeing your power, seeing what you're supposed to be doing. You're seeing the interface, you're seeing it happening in real time. But then you step back again based on the old traumas, based on the old fundamental program. What you have been programmed to override the system. That's the override. So your greatest potential is always there based upon but it's the program that stops you from seeing the greatest potential, from going to that greatest level. It's you being in that relationship that makes you blind. It's being in these spaces or these external states that your identity only can feed off of. It needs you to stay within the conflict of the emotional outcry because it cannot create anything for itself. This space cannot create anything for itself. Ooh, this shit, the way it's hidden. It can't create anything for itself. So that relationship that you in that's been dead, that friendship that's been dead, you seeing that death, that's the rebirth. You seeing that friend that's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, even though you're looking at the information in front of you. It's time to acknowledge in yourself, what aren't you doing? What are you doing? It's time to acknowledge what you are supposed to be doing for yourself. That's the hermit phase. All this information that you're bringing down, all this energy that you're bringing down, and then in the next couple of months, if you allow it to subside, everything makes sense. Like I would have stopped it on the end of that space, but the space of the jump. We're building our jump. We're building what you're in right now is you're building in that natural aspect of jumping ship or jumping from the potential. You ain't jumping from anything. You're not jumping from the relationship. You're not jumping from the job. This is the aspect when you see people jumping from relationship to relationship and jumping from job to job. And I think about myself like my mother always said to me, you never stay at a job for longer than what was 5 years. My aspect of every job that I ever had, I never stayed at a job for longer than 5 years. Even when I worked for Applebee's, I did not stay there. Like, I left from one company in one state and went to another state. I was always in a state of flux. So when you're looking at these aspects, when you're always in a constant state of flux, or you're seeing this happen, this is another aspect for us to learn from. Why does it resonate with you? Why this person seems to be able to jump from relationship to relationship, or whatever it may be, moving to that aspect for themselves. Why I can't do this, or why this isn't happening, or why this isn't coming into this fruition, or why isn't this, why can they seem that they can jump from every relationship, jump from relationship to relationship, or jump from moment to moment? They can go from relationship to relationship and go from space to space. They're trying to hinder the knowledge that it takes from each space. This is one of the biggest things that happens when you're going from your potential and you get to that space in yourself. You're like, oh my God, what's the next level? What's happening next? What's happening for me? You going into this position of your greatest potential, and now you're in this jump. Now you're thinking about, what is this jump going to bring for me? And you start thinking about everything that you externalize, the external self, the external state of yourself. This goes in the aspect for business. This goes in the aspect of so many things. Remember, everything is everything. Everything is synonymous. So you think about that plunge in that jump, or stepping forward in that jump, in that change of events that happens. What does it mean for me? What is this next statement for me? What is it showing me? What am I about to lose? We're so far ahead that we're behind. This is one of the biggest things that I always highlight in all of the lectures. We're so far ahead that we're behind. We've been here for so many times before, but to bring it into that retrospect, the reason that it keeps repeating is because you haven't learned from it. What aspects from it are you not learning within that space that is now in front of you as the proverbial guy with an anthill or ant farm, and you're looking now like, why aren't the ants doing what I programmed them to do? The ants are doing exactly what they're programmed to do. This position that I'm in is doing exactly what I programmed it to do. I put this space here. This is the aspect when you're interfacing with your God self, and you're like, I put this here to learn something over here. The interface, learning from your humanity, is when you're looking at that you've positioned there to show you something, to bring something out of you. This is the interface whenever you think about any mythos talking about the gods interfacing with the humans, and they created the Nephilims or the angels aspect. They created another angle of light. So I created this piece here, and this is why every time you look at supernatural anything and they show you the God archetype, even when they showed you Samael or the Lightbringer, or Sam the Lightbringer, and they showed you him in there, and like the first scene you saw him during the Croatoan episode, and he's sitting there and he's smelling the roses. He's looking at the chaos of the works that he has created. That's the God aspect of yourself. So when you're looking at something outside of yourself, relationship, job, look at what you have created within your job. I looked at myself with all of my jobs that I was in, and I'll be like, now I can look back and I'm like, look what I created. Every job that I've had after I left, this is you understanding your spiritual aspect. Every job that I was at, whether it went under or whatever happened to it, they never were the same after I left. That was one thing that I had to embrace for myself, because I would get stuck in this emotional aspect, or I would be pulled down into this thought process of, and then I'd be sitting there like, nah, what about this? Or every job that I was ever at, either the entire management staff got knocked off, or the company went under. It was all based upon my potential energy that I had within that space. I put my energy into this space, and I had a certain potential of my rebirth. And when I stepped out of that space, my energy, the very energy, the force of your energy in that space changes it. And now it's left gasping for air within that situation. It's gasping for air. It's everything that's been brought to the surface, being that light bearer, is now gasping either for the darkness that it hid in, or the light that sustained it for that darkness that it hid in. It changes your whole aspect on your potential of your purpose when you make the jump. That's the reason why the jump seems so scary for you. But as I just did in the weekly reading, this is the aspect of you looking at yourself, and we did the King of Swords for this acknowledgement. And if you're familiar with the King of Swords, that acknowledgement to yourself, as I pull over these notes, you're bringing yourself into that clarity. The things that you have not dealt with due to the Chiron, due to the Mercury pulling it out, all of these things line up to the darkness that you now face, or the light that you now face. It's a personalized aspect. We are long gone from the aspect of humanity making sense, and I'm parented from the energy of Panic, of Phil Valentine, of Bobby Hemmett. This is that parented energy. So if you're talking about the same things that ushered in that old energy, guess what you're going to bring? The old things. If you continually try to bring your energy that you have cultivated into this space based on what parented from before, you're only going to get the old things. You're only going to highlight now what is now in the dark brought to the light as you being in that God self. Now you're going to sit there and now you're admiring. Remember, it's not good or bad. It's negative and positive. Does it serve me? Does it not serve me? So you outside of the spectrum of time and all that other shit. So now you're looking like you're now admiring as a god, goddess. You're admiring the things that you have created based on traumas, childhood things, the things that you have repressed, that you've put away. The aspect of understanding the allegory when a child puts away their where the hell is my water at? Spirit got us on a whole different vibe. As you're sitting yourself in that position, now you're sitting there, you're looking at all the things that you have done. Everything resulted of your trauma, everything resulted of your pain is now out. Now what are you going to do with it? What are you going to invest your new time in? What are you investing your new energy in? What are you investing your new focus in? That energy that is cultivated, that has brought you to this space, what are you doing with it? Now that you made the jump into that position, what are you doing now in this new position that you have been parented based upon what you have not dealt with and what you have dealt with? That's the crosshair aspect. When I was telling everybody earlier about revolutionary psychology, it's crazy that I've read this book before when I was doing my studies at NYU, but I never really paid attention to it now. Now that I'm looking at it again, now that I've channeled it and brought it back to the forefront, that's an aspect of looking at your information when you're bringing it to the forefront, looking at these aspects of these traumas and everything that you have laid there. And as the God self, you are now visioning, or you're now seeing what you have laid out. That's why certain shit hurts so fucking bad when it's right there in front of you. That's the pain. That's your ego trying to pull you back in to the space for it to live within that confine. It's trying to pull you back into time. It's trying to pull you back into time. But time is a conflict. It's a construct. It's a construct of conflict. Emotional imbalance is a construct of space. The space that you create. And now we're in this level of learning and observing. You're outside of the realm of time. This is all going into the interface and of understanding the aspects of the gods being outside of time. What does a god mean when they do this? Or this is the aspect of understanding and interfacing with that information that you now gather with. This goes into that feeling of, if I'm sitting here in that new diet plan, or I just read this new book, or I just learned about saging, or I just learned about these different aspects, why does it make me feel a certain way? It goes into the same spectrum. Or if you're looking at that job for experience, everything becomes an interface that is showing you based on what it is. You want to advance in your job, you need experience. You're acknowledging what do you need to grow from in your level of being for your new experience, for yourself. Everything outside of you in this construct of this simulation is showing you something that you need to be programmed for. That's why when you go into the dream realm, when you go into your dream world, for me now, it's more like reinforcement about what I don't need to do anymore. I had a dream 3 nights ago. Yeah, I had a dream 3 nights ago. And I was watching Sons of Anarchy. I was watching it this time. That's how I knew I was in a different space. I was in the observer space. And I'm watching Sons of Anarchy. And it was like, if Jax didn't die, but he went to prison. So it opens to this scene of Jax having his hair braided up, and he had like rainbow colors in his braids, represent chakras. And he was sitting there talking to a new initiate or a prospect that just came into sitting at the table. You know, it was a black guy. And I'm remembering after that aspect of they just let in old buddy, so they changed the rules about letting color in. In the inclusion aspect, letting color in, and it cut to a scene where Jax is laying on the bed because they got him in like this halfway house like thing. He's laying on the bed and he's listening to the dude tell him his story about how he became a prospect till he got a seat at the table. And in the midst of this, Jack starts explaining the aspects about braiding his hair. And it got trippy. I was like, the interfacing. It was like, he explained the interfacing of braiding is like, we learned how to braid our hair because it got us more in touch with the feminine aspect principle. And right before the intimate scene of Jax trying to kiss this dude in the show, the dude pulls out his knife, the dude pulls out his gun, Jax pulls out his knife. Jax then basically cuts him from below, cuts off his dick in acceptance for not interfacing with the information that was coming from him from the feminine aspect. It's all about the acceptance of what you're losing. When we come into this aspect of the jump, coming into our potential, the fear that comes based on this potential is the emasculating quality of everything that we've held on to dear, that we knew of based on belief, coming into this level. That acknowledgement that I have to cut myself off or emasculate myself. This is when we start getting into the aspects when we start using the information of the slavery aspect and cutting off balls and all this. You have to interface with this information because it's giving you this, it's taking you to the next level of the jump. You're getting stuck within the trauma, and that's what's keeping the emotional aspect in balance. We have to look at these things without emotion and bringing them into balance. That's why the resignation of the Harriet Tubman thing pissed so many people off. But if anybody actually took the information and looked at the aspects of the Harriet Tubman, which was actually a ritual, and why they keep using it remember, how can we go back to the aspect right here in the conflict if they never gave us anything that was good for us? Then they give us something that seems to be good for us. The contradiction, remember, through the contradiction is where we learn. That's our nexus point. So what did that mean? So when they gave us the Harriet Tubman aspect and they bring it back up, they said they put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. Then they gave you now the mental aspect of seeing Kanye West say this. Yeah, we getting real deep on this. This is that bonus footage for y'all. The aspect of him being within a mental imbalanced state, and then we understand the MK Ultra and all this aspect, his handler being Kim and all of these aspects. All of this drives into the feeling that he had was the potential for him to spark. He's being used to spark something within you. But if you're at an emotional imbalance, you can't see what you need to see. If you're in an emotional imbalance with your job, relationships, whatever it may be, when you're in that space and you need to see you need to see it for the learning standpoint of what it showed you. The liberating feeling, the unlocking yourself, going forward. You lose the potential of the jump. You lose the focus of the potential of the jump and the reason that you took the jump. The reason that you came into that new knowledge. You lose the trajectory point because you get stuck in the external state and not acknowledging what that external state is showing you what you need to do inside, the reflection to yourself. That's the key aspect when we get into these things. The emotional aspect of being prisoners of war. How does this translate? That wanting that relationship from your grandmother era. What was there within that space? Listening to I watched I told you I did Dolomite earlier today. And that energy is now coming through. You start understanding when you're interfacing with these energies and what it's showing you. What are you nurturing? That childhood aspect when you're seeing the child come into your life. When you're seeing the aspects of death come into your life. All of these aspects, seeing your mother laying in a bed, no feet working. That's what I'm feeling right now when the spirit told me on that shit. No feet working right now. How are you resituating yourself in your footing? How are you retraining how you're taking your next footsteps? Everything is an aspect to learn from. How are you learning from it? When the emotional aspect come up, when that trigger of the emotional aspect come up, it's telling you to go deeper. That inner conflict that you needed to work on, that's the energy that's going to help you go deeper. These are those key aspects within the jump, within the potential, within the acknowledging the ledge that you're on, how you move forward on that ledge, how you stand firm on that ledge. It's all about the investing. What are you investing now? What are you investing your energy into for the potential for yourself to grow? That's what everything is showing you. We know death is the rebirth, or death is the gateway to knowledge, to Dath, that doorway into the knowledge, to the knowing. Allow it to kill the humanity. Allow it to kill the ego. The more overwhelming that it feels, it means you're getting closer to killing it. Allow it to die. Subside yourself to allow it to die so you can move forward to the next level. Because all you're going to be left for now is the conflict of going back and forth of what you're not getting. The distance that you feel. It's because you're not giving that acknowledgement of that distance is showing you something that you're not dealing with on the internal. The conflict that you have with the masculine aspect is showing you that you are not interfacing with the knowledge or taking the knowledge of what it needs to do. The aspect of having a conflict with the feminine participle in the gender when it comes down to this level, and your problems with females, the problems with the feminine aspect. I don't get along with bitches. I got along more with niggas. What you're telling yourself is, I got along with more knowing, and now it's time for me. The conflict before yourself in acknowledging that reflection is now I need to nurture what I'm knowing. It all boils down. And this is what it breaks all down. It breaks down the aspect of independence that we've talked about, and it leaves you a little more vulnerable. And that's what we're going to get into this Friday night. Vulnerability. Last week we got into nostalgia. This week we get into vulnerability. But stay tuned for the plug talk before we get into the closeout. And take Recruiting the God out. I love you. We love us. We just want to be great. Ashe. Of course, we gotta keep you plugged in. Gotta keep you plugged in with the Alkhemist. Gotta keep you plugged in with Papa Lucy. New services available on the website. Natal Analysis is one that I've separated out. It can be a separate service. And I've added tarot readings. So I do the readings too. The readings are done via Skype if you're not local, but I can't come to you if you are local to do a reading. So you don't have to worry about, can he do this locally or via video online? Both can be done both ways. I can do the consultations, the counseling, the rituals. We can get all that put together online. And if it takes us to go into the next aspect of going where it has to be in person, we can set that up. So that's all in there. GodaCoAlchemistLLC.com. Start that initial consultation. Get that work. The only thing that's important is that you start. That's the most important part. That's the key factor. Start. That next key factor is, of course, having a humble heart. setcarlonegus@gmail.com, setcarlonegus@gmail.com, papalucci666@gmail.com. The number's still 910-777-7708. Call or text. If you're interested in looking in the Trippy God shirt or down showing your support that way, check out Occult Alchemy, myshopify.com for new prints, new designs, all within the store. I got a couple new tapestries that you can focus and meditate on. I got a lot of new stuff coming in, going on. And as always, you can support by becoming a monthly patron to the podcast. And if you are interested in having spot on the podcast, whether interviews, you have a product that you want to link onto the podcast, bring a part of Plug Talk, hit that email, hit the emails up, and we can get that started. Hit text the number, we can get that together. Interviews, topics, what else? Yeah, interviews, topics, a discussion. You want to leave a message? Get your message played on God Called Alchemist, the God Hour podcast. Yeah. But I'm gonna take my little break and then I'm gonna come back and we're gonna do this closeout. I love y'all. You love us. Ashe. I'm just in the melodic of the beat, allowing it to work its way through me, because that's the main point when we tapping into these new levels of information. But stay tuned for the closeout. Ashe. As we come to the close of another God Hour episode, in the closing that we have now acknowledged the jump, now we're acknowledging these things, which was when I did earlier when we did our, we do the weekly reading. All of the information put into those codes, that information will be going forward. Now that you're in this new potential, now that you are in a state of, you had to do what needed to be done to internalize the inner state of self, what came out. What are you investing in that nuance of energy? As we step forward in a space, be that as it may, what must be burnt away is simply the aspects of humanity of what left us in a aspect of judgment. That left us hung in a suspense. But now we're at a completion based on our decisions. All the clarity that you need to move forward in what you need to move forward in is what the whole process is. That's the whole learning aspect. Once you learn this key aspect and embrace that learning aspect, it becomes easy to move on. You don't have to worry about the backlash in this aspect of, what about my family not understanding me? What about my job not understanding me? There's no going back. The whole ushering of what you're doing now, there's no going back. The thing that you feared within your confidence was what had you stuck in the conflict is once you make that decision, what are you standing on? What have you invested your energy into? Most of us, for an entire period of time in our lives, we go through this aspect over and over and over again, repeating the cycles. This is the aspect when you look about Dante's Inferno being that comedy, and you're thinking about repeating. All you're repeating is the guilt, or you're repeating the guilt. You're repeating everything that's on your heart. The reason that it keeps in repetition is because you haven't learned from it yet. That snowball effect, that's the emotional aspect connected to the trauma that's making it seem larger than what it is. That's why when you put something in a certain position based on the externalized states such as job, career, this right here, house, all of these aspects right here in thought process, those are all based upon the I. But that I that you have created now gives you a new vision to learn through. So how are you using the knowledge that you're envisioning? Is it based upon your intuition, or is it based upon your trauma? Everything that you put into that position is a program. You programmed it to do a certain thing. Once it comes to the end of that program, what it's doing, the program either resets itself to do what it did, what you programmed it to do in the beginning, or you no longer need the program. This is how we start looking at these things. We start acknowledging our inner self. What is it showing us? These things that we've looked at long and long ago from before, what is it highlighting? Why does it still exist? Why does my baby father do this? Why does it hurt when my baby father did this? Why does it hurt when this person did this? Why is my 10-year in longevity relationship being of financial aspect not succeeding or give me to the potential that I need to get to? These are the routines of the infrastructure that are broken in order for you to acknowledge the true you. This has been another episode of the God Hour. This is episode 23. This is season 3, episode 25. Acknowledging the ledge. You on the ledge. You have the knowledge. You have the access to get to the knowledge. What are you going to do when you take that jump? When you land into that valley, everything that's down there is of your own creation. I love you. We love us. Ashe.